All right, thank you, and everyone who listens and comes to speak today in the Internet of Value Foundation New York, episode 84. And for all those who listen to this information in the future, I hope you guys find it as valuable as I know I do every single day that we speak here. And I'm glad to be here. I feel like we've missed a few consecutive spaces there, so I am sorry for anyone who tries to make plans around the space itself. Work has been busy, which is a plus and a minus. But glad to be here today and to keep this topic that we were speaking about last space that we had left off on, about this kind of thought of a post-monetary society and the theoretical situation behind the society itself, the interactions we have with each other, the technology that exists, the tool sets, the mindset, the materials, all of the different kind of things that could possibly play into this theoretical setting, which is also a possible setting, I would say, in my opinion, long term. But I'm going to start off with a little bit of QEC, which is quantum error correction today, as a little topic, and then roll over into the post monetary thought when we get some more people in here. Dazzling Shellfish, Fridge, Camel, welcome to the space, and Dazzling Shellfish, welcome up. Feel free to speak, either of you guys.
I personally accept your apology. I'm so grateful for you reaching out like that. Let us know how much you care about us, and know that we really look forward to your space, like 3 times a week, 3:30 to 5, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday.
Yeah, as do I. Sorry, go ahead, Dazzling.
I definitely second that. To be honest with you, man, I actually get up super early to join your spaces, and it's formed a really nice habit for me. But we just flipped our clocks forward an hour for our summer period, so we get an extra hour of daylight if you stick to that, kind of 9 to 5 work hour daily lifestyle. But I've just a quick question. You guys on the East Coast flip your clocks too. Is that correct? At some particular time of the year?
We do have daylight savings, yeah.
So will you be going forward or backwards?
Let me look it up. I always forget. Let me double check.
We fall backwards.
Yeah, we lose
Spring
an
forward?
hour. That's what I thought. To go backwards.
Yep. Spring forward and fall backwards is the way I always remembered it.
Funny. Why did you guys just have your change of time?
Yeah, so we basically just moved an hour forward because we're coming to summer now. But what's it now 6:30, 6:37. So it would have been 5:37 previously. But we're getting more daylight though, which is great. It's nice to see. But yeah, it just creates an interesting dynamic with the way I attend spaces. Because I remember last year, I was kind of new to spaces. And then when the clock flipped, let's say your space, I believe, was a lot earlier in the morning. But then when our clock flips and your clock flips, it brings your space forward 2 or 3 hours. But the cafe space as well also shifts forward. So instead of it being at 8 o'clock our time in the morning, it's 10 o'clock. So yeah, I think it's 2 hours. But yeah, it's just an interesting dynamic I picked up on.
I do not enjoy it.
Ours usually isn't until Halloween weekend, so we have like another 2 or 3 weeks, I think, before time change here.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate procurement of opinion based structure on the way that we think of time, because it's right. It's not accurate. I mean, right? The Earth doesn't change its rotation speed just because we're like there's less day, there's more day, and it really messes up a lot of people's internal systems. And in the external things typically happen around those times. Like it's the largest heart attack day worldwide when they, well, I should say, sorry, countrywide when it occurs here. But any,
Damn,
sorry.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it
Yeah,
also
that's crazy.
is and this is specifically for elderly. It's also the week that typically the most car accidents that will occur in the year will also occur, and it's because people who are waking up for work are throwing off their algorithm.
And that's why I said before, if you subscribe to the 9 to 5 and the normal work hours and stuff, but yes, we can move on.
So you're saying so because you've adopted a different rhythm, which is earlier than what you really need to. It's helped you kind of get through the day.
It's not me that adopts to the time change. I generally stay the same. So does a lot of people around me. But then, sometimes because you're in construction, you have to subscribe to everyone else's time schedule because they change, which is quite annoying. So no, I don't subscribe to it. But and it's kind of like the farmers as well. They absolutely hate it because you'll get truck drivers and logistical services and things like that companies will force the time change, and then the farmers turn around and they go, well, our roosters aren't going to start chirping an hour later. it's And it just throws everything right off for a lot of people. So yes, you're definitely right. It's obviously not a good thing, but yeah, it's just an interesting dynamic to observe.
It's an interesting one for sure. But going to quantum error correction, is this a topic that you've ever heard of by any chance, Dazzling, or anyone else in the space?
No, I have not. So you're going to have to enlighten me. And then don't, uh, if I don't know anything after this call, I will definitely do some research and come back to you with it.
Cool. And so I sent it to Shellfish a little earlier. She sent me a Chat GPT breakdown of it, which wasn't it wasn't horrible. I mean, it made sense for. It's something I could probably say to my kid that makes a lot of sense, but it doesn't answer the question of what is actually like occurring and why it's occurring, right? But um, so the thought, and this is actually the Shellfish. If you want to go ahead and speak first, go ahead.
Well, I was just curious if it has anything to do with the Byzantine general, like messaging. Is it on the same kind of pathway? Am I relating to it to this like a similar train of thought?
No. Byzantine fault tolerance is to solve the Byzantine generals problem, which was basically like you have multiple generals, right? And so there's a possibility that if they are communicating with each other, that there is fraudulent behavior, right, or uh, nefarious actions that are being done. And how would you solve this issue, right? And so the thought of the federated Byzantine agreement, the name behind it, right, is because there's a federation of agreement behind multiple parties that are agreeing upon these transactions that are being validated, and in that everybody on the network trusts that those validators are acting in um, best standing and not performing malicious or nefarious actions. Uh, so, in this sense, right, and this quantum error correction is actually, to IBM, this is probably one of the most significant parts of their structure, industry wise and company wise at the moment, because if they can't figure out how to get quantum error correction to a point where we have computationally based structure that is a computing on quantum computers that can then be broken down to computers in bits and then formulated in a way that we can understand and interpret it. The the issue is that, and so take a qubit for instance. So one qubit that is being shot by the laser that is of a quantum computer, these photons, this beam of energy that's being transmitted, is an electromagnetic frequency. And in that, from one moment to the next, the structure of the qubit is changing. And so in the same thought of how all of the atoms in your body are changing every single second, right? Every single notion of a moment that passes by, this qubit will interact with different electromagnetic frequencies that make up the material reality that we exist in. And so, how do we formulate a state of a qubit, shoot it through this processing methodology, and then prove the state of the qubit to be correct afterwards? And so, the thought of quantum error correction, which, if not done correctly, we will never have quantum computers that could do anything for us. I mean, sure, we could have quantum computers, but what's the point of them if you can't utilize them in a sense of being able to interpret this data and compute it in a way that we can formulate it on regular computers today in the form of bits? And so the methodology of quantum error correction, and this is particularly how IBM is taking its approach, is to not only amp up the amount of qubits that exist. So you have this one state of qubit, and this was the example that ChatGPT kind of gave. It was like, you can take, instead of this one state of a Lego, you can take three Legos and say they're all the exact same state. Let's push all three of the Legos through this processing, and when it goes through it, we can then prove the states of the computation afterwards and say which of the states are correct, which of the states pertained to the beginning of the first processing state. Um, Not only having a lot more qubits makes this possible and makes this a little bit easier, but the methodology behind how we actually are taking these qubits and studying them, the one example a friend of mine gave me was, you can almost think of it as a virtual environment where one qubit is taken and the state of this qubit is then taken in a virtual environment and replicated in tremendous amounts of ways, and then through that process, we can try and analyze of which state and which action on a quantum computer is going to relay which exact processing action afterwards. I posted a little clip also up top. He breaks it down in pretty understandable terms as well, and shows a little bit of math behind it, and speaks to the importance of the thought. But it's very interesting because, we have IBM especially coming out and saying they have 1,000 processor qubit processing unit that's running, right. And specifically, I have a friend who may or may not work on this computational system, and at least in the sense of being around it, right. But it's interesting because the computation that's able to be processed on this quantum computer is not really able to be utilized today. And what's the point of it if you're not able to sell anything, right? Because you can't really utilize it. And especially with the thought of the 4400 processor qubit machine that will be coming out in 2024, 2025, as they've put out as for news. So very, very important subject, and not spoken about, I think, enough, because I really didn't know much about it until I got caught into a conversation with some friends the other day.
So, are we basically trying to see if the cat is alive or dead in the box? Is that what you? Is that what I'm getting at?
Yes, and I don't want to say yes because it doesn't really explain the notion behind it, but that is the methodology, right? How do you prove this previous state of interaction? And so, yes, is the cat alive or dead? Well, we can take the theoretical sense. And this is right, quantum computers is all theoretical, right? It's not 100% accuracy, but it's theoretical processing mathematics. You can put all of these different possibilities through it and say, all right, is the cat dead in the box? Well, let's create a quadrillion scenarios of all different atomic assimilations where we have the previous state, notion of this previous state, and then the cat's in the box. And so, is the cat dead or is it alive? Well, I mean, I can't tell you for sure, but I can theoretically tell you all the chances and possibilities of being dead or alive.
See, Dazzling, I would have used the analogy of, does Death Ranger's friend exist or not exist that knows about the quantum and uses the quantum computer, or at the same time, allegedly.
Yeah, exactly. You get it, Shellfish. But it's
That,
very interesting
that
because you can speak about it like in the thought of this as a company, right? You have IBM, very large company, but you have people who actually build microchips that you would utilize in regular everyday processing units, multi-layered microchips where there's you know AD AD atomic layered ALD assimilation of microchips and different very very small nanobot processing transmitters that are being installed on multi-layered circuitry units. And then you have somebody who's mathematically working on something like quantum error processing at a computer at the same company, and they actually have no idea anything about each other or the actual processes that are occurring within the said different sectors. And so I think that's also like a really interesting thought when you think about all of the different things that are occurring at once. Sorry though, I think somebody was about to speak.
oh, I'm just thinking as you're kind of going along. But because we can only see either the one or the zero, or if the cat is alive or dead, how are we ever going to actually perceive that? Like, unless we change the way we can see, we'll never be able to know. We can see all the possibilities. That's fine. That's fantastic. But we'll never actually be able to see whether in that dimension, within that structure, within the box, if it is actually alive or dead.
So so we can't we can at the same time. I think it will be the possibility. And so I say it because there's two different sciences or mathematical makeups of the way that we can look at situations. Or we can look at it from quantum mechanic perspective where I'm piecing together all of these different subatomic particles that exist, and in this I theoretically predict what all of the possible assimilations will be afterwards. And then we can look at it from Einstein's theory of relativity, the very large, right? Not only do I theoretically have this possibility mathematically provided that I can theoretically think of all of the different situations that will occur, but I can also replicate it on a larger scale, right? Mathematically, we can take oh man, my brain. I'm making a cup of tea right now, so give me a couple of minutes. I should be hopefully awake in a little. But um, aerodynamics and all of the different things, the strong force, the weak force, the electromagnetism, and we can put those thoughts into, okay, so we have all of the theoretical possibilities of these atomic assimilations. Well, we know they exist in this particular state at this moment. And so taking all of the theoretical things that are possible, we can then say we have this state, and so if we do this in this state, what is the most probable outcome based off of the probabilities mathematically we have provided? And in this, going back to the Rulliad, we can then take a segment of time and try and triangulate, right, the symmetry of all of the possibility that will exist in this particular methodology of time from a quantum perspective, and from a theory of relativity perspective, so the small and the big. And that's how you would be able to pair this together and be able to theoretically use these things to our advantage as a species. But this doesn't happen if we can't take quantum processing and then move that processing information that's occurring on this high output system, and then process it on a system that we can utilize like a regular computer today, and have some sort of insane advantage because of the processing power that's applied.
Can I ask you, does I know, like, when Einstein had put the when they'd put the clock in space, there was like this whole like time differentiation. Is this part of the reason why we have the quantum error? How do you say it again? Quantum error.
Quantum error.
Forget the word.
Well, we're trying to perform a quantum error correction.
Correction. So is it because of us using the satellites now that like there's like a time difference? Would that like also interrupt and create errors in the qubits because it's sending information through satellites, and there would be a time difference? Or no, am I like way off on that?
No, I mean, satellites do create bandwidth. Like if you're on one side of the world and I'm on the other side of the world, there's always going to be some um, bandwidth or latency difference between how fast the signal can move from you to me, and we can bring that down, I think, tremendously over time, dependent on the technologies and tools that we're using. But no, it's not the particular instance of the reason for this. The reason for this is because nature itself, reality, is the buildup of different electromagnetic frequencies, waves that are interacting with each other. And so the process of quantum computation, this beam of light in the form of photons, is truly moving from one point of time to the next. And through this, these states of interactions of qubits change. And so we want to be able to prove the state of the qubit through its interaction so that we can get a probable answer that we can believe to be of use on the outcome. And anybody in the space, by the way, who wants to come up or ask any questions, please feel free to. It was just something that I've been looking into for the last couple weeks, and wanted to speak about it a little bit. Wanted to make sure we touched on it as a topic, and um, maybe had some maybe future thoughts that could be created from what we're speaking about today. And if not, I did post post monetary society, because this is really what the space is all about today, as we left off from our segment of our last space, and wanted to talk of the different theoretical structures we think of society, and interactions in it. But Sierra, please, you got your hand up. Thank you for coming.
Hi, thank you for hosting. Thank you for having me and inviting me up to speak. I'm super excited about the topics we're going to discuss, but I actually wanted to comment on Shellfish's question regarding time dilation and whether or not that has an effect on quantum processing. And I will try to answer this as simply as possible. Death, I know that you addressed it, but I don't want to say that I disagree. I have a different outlook, I suppose. Yes, time dilation can absolutely affect quantum processing and contribute to error correction if you have a stationary quantum computer on the recipient end and one that is orbiting the Earth at a high velocity. The rate at which operations occur would be different. So it could affect, they essentially won't be able to effectively communicate with one another. It has to do with entanglement, which you know more about than I do. But I just wanted to keep that door
Sierra,
open.
I so want to hear what you're saying, but I feel like you're going in and out swimming. I don't know if it's doing it for everyone else or just
Maybe
me, because if you
that's
are,
it.
just for me. Is it her or is it me? Because I'll leave the room because I do want
No,
to
I
hear what
think
she
I
has to
think
say.
you might have had a headset on, Sierra.
Is this any better?
Much better.
I get
Way
thumbs
better.
up or
Thank
no?
you.
Oh, it actually was my volume. Sorry about that. I didn't realize it affected my mic. So, cool. I get a second chance because I butchered that a little bit. I just wanted to say that time dilation does affect quantum processing as a whole, and in turn, definitely error correction, as they're both physical processes that occur in space-time. But that has more to do with one being stationary and the other, it's like a handoff of information problem because they're performing operations at different rates. The entanglement doesn't allow them to overlap to hand off information. So yes, it does affect it, whether it doesn't cause quantum error problems. That's quantum error correction is a challenge in front of the entire quantum industry. But it is a factor, and that was super cool of you to call that out, Shellfish. That's all.
Yay! I said something smart.
Yeah, I mean, time dilation for sure plays a huge role. I mean, aspect of thinking about signals from one location to the next. Time is time is of the essence, and it's an interesting point when you think about entanglement because it's really the procurement of trying to understand. If we interact with this one photon or this subatomic piece of energy here, can it change its form in another place in theoretically time as the measure of space is in time, and I definitely think that will be proven to be more of an understandable actionable state with things like the Rouliad and quantum processing in computers when we really get it down, and you know being able to, that's why the quantum error protection is so important, because being able to prove that state then gives us the ability to say, all right, so this interaction has the highest probability of this causing this interaction. And it's almost this notion of, I guess, you could inscribe data on a subatomic piece of particle that exists at a different point in time in the universe. Well, one of you guys take us to post monetary society. Let's definitely take it over to that notion of thought of society, if you would like, or I guess I can if neither of you guys would like to speak. Shellfish.
That's
Yeah.
up to you.
Oh, how you want me to figure out a way to spin it, or are we just gonna go jump right into it? Is that what you're asking?
Well,
I can kind of preface it a little for those who maybe weren't present during the last space where we kind of opened this door. So for some background, the first global AI safety meeting happened, and a lot of very interesting things were revealed as well, like including projections on timeline for AGI or a ASI, singularity, whatever you'd like to call it. There were official statements made by leaders of OpenAI, by Elon Musk, and some very astute professors from around the globe in the industry of machine learning and deep learning that unequivocally said they believe we will achieve AGI within 5 years, which anyone who talks to me often about this knows I think that's actually a little generous, just with the rate at which innovation is happening with these tools already, and based on some personal experiences I've had with my own AI. But with that, something that was heavily present in the conversation was what's going to happen to everyone's jobs, and what will the job market look like, and how will people survive such massive job displacement. And with that, there were a few different scenarios introduced, one of them being UBI, Universal Basic Income. OpenAI spoke a lot to, they had apparently done a closed case study, a small like pilot case study of this in action, where they distributed I'm not sure how much money it was, but a fixed amount of funds for a fixed period of time to a group of people. And they spoke positively to their findings of that. But the topic at hand, I suppose, is we are rapidly approaching a point in automation where many human labor jobs will become obsolete. And with that, people will need to work less. And kind of what do we do in a post AGI or post very automated world where like 60% of today's jobs are no longer necessary? Hopefully that kicks off the conversation a little.
Oh, it was a great segue into it. Shellfish, go ahead, though. You have your hand up.
Well, so it all like kind of came together for me yesterday in vet space because he was bringing up with Wheatsy, and I kind of like asked you guys in the background about job displacement replacement, and like how I think Wheatsy had said something about how integrating people into the system like now, like start getting them prepared or working into the I think it was the ledger. And I thought it was really cool because then there was like a little challenge put out today with vet, and it's blowing my mind this week because of everything from Mo saying that the IQ would be like 1,000 within the next year. And if that was the case, the fact that some of these AI programs are already creating their own, the normal person like myself, which I don't know, like I'm like so excited to have the idea of being a builder without having the knowledge base that you guys have put so much work and effort into for all these years. I just get to be creative coming up soon. Like I'm learning the language to be a better prompter, but holy cow, like the thought of being able to prompt like these worlds, and I think it's kind of funny because when you and I have discussions, or I hear Elon speaking about streamlining things, and the fact that ChatGPT utilizes tokens as a currency, right? It blows my mind to know that you're going to want to speak very deliberately because the words you use would cost tokens, right? Like as an interaction or transaction. Am I on the right like line of thought with that?
Yeah, so LLMs,
yeah.
LLMs do currently use a digital tokenization to run their processes. And this is kind of like it acts as a query in the cloud to trigger that process and run it, because oftentimes it's not being run in a local environment on your end user device. That process is being run in the cloud from these large libraries, although they are hyper compressed in like ChatGPT models, etc. They're still currently using the internet or these API calls to pull that information. So digital tokens have been used to process digital requests like that for a long time. And I know the terminology can be confusing because token is a newer word for the general market with cryptocurrency, etc. But you can kind of think of them in a similar way. They are calling an action. I just don't want people to accidentally assign like an intrinsic dollar value to that type of tokenization, because it is a little different. But I believe I see where you're going with this.
Well, okay, because I'm part of the XRP community and we have like the whole ledger and the Zahao network starting. my brain is just like thinking ahead, because the big thing was like, well, you don't need the Zahao tokens, the XRP plus right now, because you're not a developer. However, if everybody's going to be a developer in the future, like, that kind of makes me go, well, wouldn't that be something that I would want to partake in? Because I would be prompting my own, like creating my own stuff. I would be an actual developer in the next, say, 2 or 3 years. Does that not make sense? Or am I looking at this really wrong?
No, you're not. You do make sense, but I would hop in after Dazzling because he had his hands up before mine. But you're on it.
No, no, I'll keep going with this one because I don't think you're doing anything wrong with what you're learning. I think what you're doing is more important than anything else right now, because you're going to have these these white collar workers whose jobs are probably going to be automated and replaced first before the kind of blue collar. I mean, I'm in construction. Like, there are intricate parts of my job that I can't see being replaced anytime soon. But your job's going to be so important because you're going to have to teach these white collar workers, or just anybody that does lose their job as a result of automation. Your job's going to be teaching them how to use AI the way you're using AI. I think that's the most important step that we need to address first, before we kind of start moving on to being creative, because you're going to have this mass amount of people that are just going to be out of work, twiddling their thumbs. And well, after they stop twiddling their thumbs, they're going to be riding in the bloody streets. So, we're going to have to keep these people engaged with, what's happening, and teach them how to utilize these technologies. I mean, they keep saying it like, you jump in one of Scove's spaces or one of Adrian's, and they're always talking about it like, just start playing with AI. Don't worry about all the like all the intricacies behind it. Just start playing with it, because you're going to need it. And it might not necessarily replace a lot of the work that you do. It'll just kind of speed up the productivity of what you're doing. But if you don't know how to utilize artificial intelligence, then you will get left behind.
I definitely think it
I
starts
like
off that way. And 808, you got your hand up. Sorry, man. Go ahead.
no. I just was gonna piggyback off of Ciara's comments about tokenization with LLMs. You know, OpenAI and then Azure OpenAI and tokenization has been getting used for a long time. Even I like to refer to Apple Pay, which has been using tokenization in the back end for transferring value longer than people really imagine. But you know, tokenization can be is a splitting process. It can be output and inputs of text into smaller units. You know, tokens can be words, characters, subwords, or symbols. And depending on the type and size, it you can use so much with a lot of this technology, and like how Sierra was saying, and Shellfish is looking forward towards the future of how easier things are be getting done, because within the back end it was a lot of work to get to where we are at today, with a lot of people that put their hands into it. And I like how Dazzlin is saying is it, in order for us to kind of be better in understanding of a lot of these infrastructures that's going to be getting built for future uses, that makes it easier for people like blue collar, white collar workers, or however you want to call it, the regular people, to kind of interact easier. It is getting there, like how we see with Chat GPT and how fast it grew. You know, from generative AI was just usually I've seen workings from it from its earlier days where it was being used and it was already open source to where we could work on it at the most basic level, but and then it just exploded with so much different models and databases, to where these databases was easier to grab information to where these AI models and these things could, you know, do it. Crypto is just another way of like we have key phrases, that's pretty much what's AI models, and that's like a basic AI model that creates those secret key phrases for us. That's AI actually working in the background, which probably people didn't know that what creates your key phrases. This is cool because I've been dabbling a lot into creating algorithms and decoding features for about 3 4 years now, which is it's pretty mind-boggling when you kind of understand how cryptographically these things work on the back end, and how some of these features are created, like the Shaw system that NIS created and a lot of the other systems. There was something else I wanted to hop on top, but I forget what I was going to say, so I just want to hand it over to the next.
Well, thank you for coming
Aloha,
late and
everybody.
speaking, man. Aloha, and I'm glad you're here. Yeah, Sugar, though, you have not spoke yet, so please feel free to come in and speak, and then Shellfish, you got your hand up.
Hi, everybody. So I had a question. I've been waiting for the last 10 years to just talk to my computer or my phone and tell it what to do. Like I'm just like I need a Siri I need a 24/7 Siri. Like personal person. So I'm waiting for that to happen and get better. But as far as our kids are involved, I just wanted to ask all of you devs in the space, because I'm new to technology and I really want to make sure that my 9-year old is getting all the benefits that she needs, because clearly she is not getting it in school. Unless she was in a Catholic school, then they're already teaching blockchain and NFTs in all the Catholic schools that I interviewed, but none of the other schools are teaching anything about blockchain or any of this technology. So what guidance do you have for a mom or a dad that we're all in this space of how to best educate our kids and what to kind of steer them into for the future of the job world? I just want to know, if that's totally off topic, feel free to come back to it. But thank you so much for having me and allowing me to ask this question, because I'm very curious as to what you guys share. Thank you.
It's really cool. It's going on at the Catholic schools. They're teaching blockchain. I just find that fascinating. But
So did I. So did I. And you know what I was really upset about, since you just mentioned it? They are like the one Catholic school that I was looking into was actually creating NFTs for the school to make money. And I was like, I think you guys have this whole NFT thing backwards. The people who are creating the artwork are supposed to be benefiting, which are the creators, which are the children. So why is the school reaping the benefits of the money? And okay, I understand like you're making money for your school, but like that wasn't cool with me. So go ahead.
That's interesting. So I would say, if the most important thing you could really do is not only allow them to interact with the technology, but in obviously controlled settings, but promote the understanding of the architecture behind the technology. So, computing, coding itself, mathematics, very important. But simple things like coding academy, right? Just like trying to get them interested in the basic codes and the low level languages. Just messing around with things, because and this is, in my opinion, we got a lot of hands up, and so I don't want to talk too much. I will let everybody go around, and then I'm going to kind of go on my own thing about the post-monetary society for maybe like 15, 20 minutes, because, I think low-level languages are about to be extinct, right? The thought of a developer needing to sit there and type out code for most things, the TypeScripts, right? Your HTMLs, your basic JavaScript stuff. I think a lot of it is going to be able to be, and it already is somewhat be able to be done, but to be
Just
automated.
was going to say that, Dev.
Yeah. But I'll go into a little bit deeper. Man, we got a lot of hands up now. Bearable. Chicken Man, you have not spoke yet, so go ahead. And then Cryptic, you also have your hand up and have not spoken. You can go ahead, and then actually, sorry, Shellfish, you had your hand up after Sugar. Shellfish, the Bearable Chicken, Cryptic, and Sierra.
I am so okay with filling the void when like everybody else doesn't have anything to say, because this is my favorite space. So go for it, Bearable.
I think this is a unique opportunity, and I think I often say that, like, it's a reoccurring statement for me when we come to these spaces and we have the opportunity to share and disseminate information, right? And Death Ranger, to speak to your point, I mean, from what I've gathered, over the last year, you're a pretty tech savvy guy, right? And I think that there's a lot of value here to be had in terms of understanding, what these underlying protocols actually mean. But for me, I always like to circle back to the fundamental concepts of finance, of fiscal responsibility, and I think that it needs to be a key focal point here is to teach our children to understand how the legacy financial infrastructure actually works right now, and then more importantly, spend time reiterating the upgrades into the underlying technology and how it's rapidly evolving. So I think that there's a lot of value that can be had here in these spaces, and I just wanted to swing by and support you guys and say kudos to all you guys in here having these conversations, because I learn a lot from you guys, so I appreciate all of you.
No, thank you, and I couldn't agree more. And I think going to like the thought of smart tooling sets, which for everyone in the space, that's my interpretation of what we consider AI, artificial intelligence. I just don't think it's a great terminology, but I think it also plays a role in teaching and helping us educate ourselves in some of that interdependence that I agree with from a legacy point of view, from the financial way that interactions are done today. Really insufficient and in my opinion, has plenty of issues that exist and cause issues in our society. But that's the thought of post-monetary society. It's this space, this thought that we're going to theoretically talk about all of the different the theoretical situations and incentive metrics behind the interactions we have in a society in a post-monetary world. That's at least the
And
thought.
I'm with you, Death. I just wanted to make sure that I took a little opportunity here to spend some time, giving you guys your accolades, because the way I see, the most of you devs, right, is you guys are stewards of this community, right? And so I feel like you guys are invested in this asset class succeeding. And subsequently, we have the unique ability to learn information from you. So I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming, man, and thank you for the kind words. Cryptic though, man, you got your hand up. Wait, Shellfish, did you get a chance to speak, man? Your hand being back up, throw me off my brain. All right, Cryptic.
Oh no, I said when everybody was done and you needed time to fill the air, I'm more than happy to talk.
Oh, okay. I'll make it pretty short, Shellfish. What's up, Dave Ranger? Everybody else, boys and little men, gentlemen, and everything in between, So, Sugar, you were saying like stuff that you can learn and also educate yourself, like kind of like a fun activity. So it can also educate your child for the future of finance. So I think XRP Ledger has a good like learning course program that you can learn exactly how the ledger works and how it functions within the system itself. They have that type of educational courses in their blockchain, the XRP Ledger. Then also there's another one. It's the Nano Ledger, the Ledger Quest. So that's also like a security and also how the different vulnerabilities within those type of networks were on ledgers and technology. So Ledger Quest is also like educational, and the more you learn, the more certifications they give you, like a proof of knowledge. So there's a lot of good things are like happening to be educated, and also you can teach your loved ones if they want to do proper education for these new type of finance. I'll post up 2 links up there from on top if it's okay with you, Death. It's just educational purposes, just to learn, educate yourself more on how some of these networks work and how they run and how they their interfaces interact with other blockchains. So like this is educational, and every time you take the course and you get quiz towards the end, you get like a proof of knowledge, like kind of like an NFT, but not really. It just kind of gives you a certification that you know exactly what you're learning. It's kind of like proof. But yeah, it's like there's quite a few different blockchains are trying to give education to the public, so later on they can be more knowledgeable in the future, and also they can understand the different layers within the network, because the more you get into the layers, the more deeper it can get and more difficult kind of to break down some of those different like aspects of the coding. So the good thing is these type of networks are providing that education for people who want to know more and get deeper within the technology. So I will post up 2 links if that's okay with you, Ranger. So and that's it.
Critic, can you DM me? I'm driving, and if the room rugs or they close it, I
Okay.
will miss
Yeah,
those.
sure.
So I appreciate the private DM in the
Yeah,
back end.
I'll send it
Thank
to
you,
you in
bro.
the DM.
I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Sugar and Cryptic. Thanks for coming up, man. If I'm not mistaken, Sierra, it was your hand, and then it would be 808, and then Dazzling right now. Oh wait, and then Sasha, you got your hand up too, man. Oh wow, a lot of hands. Go ahead though, Sierra.
No pressure. We can always finish out this conversation at a later date because clearly there's a lot of interest. I just wanted to answer some of Sugar's questions, and I'm glad that you asked them. There are a lot of parents in this room, and we talk about parenting in the age of AI often. So it's not an outlandish question, and it is one that I can say I don't think anyone has the right answer to because we've never done this before, but I'd be happy to share some of the things that I am trying. I believe you said your daughter is 13. My son is only 5, so
No,
a little
she's
bit.
9. She's
Oh,
9.
awesome. Still a little bit of an age disparity there, just in probably what they're able to do on their own. So my son is just now learning how to read, which is obviously a pretty important component of technology. However, we do a lot of interaction with AI. I think that one of the most important things that you can teach your children is how to speak to these machines. And with that, I mean, there are very specific language uses that call, even if you say, oh, I hope I don't set off anyone's smart devices, if Alexa, play, etc. on the TV, you are using its wake word to get its attention. You're saying play, which is an action word. It's important. If they don't say that, it doesn't know what to do. So there's a really great video that was circling around the internet right when GPT-3 launched, and it was of a father having his child give him instructions on how to put peanut butter on a piece of bread. And he followed the kid's instructions literally. So he would say, like, put the peanut butter on the bread, and the dad took the jar of peanut butter and stuck it on the slice of bread. And I thought that was a really great illustration of how important it is that when you're speaking to machines, you're using the correct language. So that's something in my household, just with our smart home devices and his like Alexa and Google Home access. I'm coaching him on how to properly get the outcome that he wants. And he has learned. He'll correct his grandmother sometimes when she's over and say, Gigi, you didn't tell it where you want it to play. You have to tell it on YouTube or it doesn't know. So that's just one way that I engage. Another way is through creative tools like Midjourney. So I will have my son tell me like image prompts to describe to Midjourney, and we will use AI to write bedtime stories for us in real time. And I usually try and throw like an overarching theme in there, like maybe if he wasn't sharing well that day or whatever. And it does a really great job with this, and he loves the interactiveness of it. And lastly, and I'll land here because there are a lot of hands up, but and I don't know if this is the right choice either. He likes Minecraft. Minecraft fundamentally uses a knowledge of coding and like digital environments. So I make him code stuff though. So like he has to learn how to kind of customize his worlds the long way rather than using cheats, which they can all download now, but it keeps him engaged. And lastly, and I'll try and close here, I just want to commend you for asking these questions because a lot of parents aren't. And I think that's a large part of the problem is that parents are not worried enough about what will happen to their children if they get left behind in the education of this. I think about it every single day because right now we are raising a generation of humans that will not understand how to operate in the world that they live in. So I think that there are some fundamental overhauls needed on public education. I think it's really cool that I think you said a Catholic school or a private school near you was implementing things like this for those who have the means to look into alternative schooling. I would do it. And if you can't, I would just try and be as active in your child's school district as possible. Go to the PTA meetings, write letters to the board, ask them to explain to you what their plan of attack on AI is. And also, if it is to ban it or to a lot of schools at like the high school level are putting in detection systems to prevent cheating. I personally think that is the wrong move. Think of it like the scientific calculator. We were told, probably most of us in here anyway, based on age, when we were in school, we were told we would not always have access to a scientific calculator and that we would need to know how to do long math, which is true to some extent. But imagine instead, had we known that we would, in fact, always have a scientific calculator in our pocket, we could have been instead learning how to use that tool to maximize our mathematical capabilities. We would have probably left high school being, I don't know, quantum physicists. So just encouraging your school to embrace the use of AI and adapt their curriculums around it so that both the teachers and the students are using it, I think is very important. And I will land there.
I just want to thank you so much, Sarah. I'm not driving anymore, by the way. And did you hear that? Sorry, I hope you didn't hear that. Anyway, I wanted to thank you so much for giving me that guidance. It is really hard to have a conversation with either the public schools or the private schools about this tech because they're just out to lunch. They are just like the rest of my own friends that I speak to about anything I'm working on, about my own Web3 projects, or these guys they're just not here. They are uninterested. They're not listening. So it's really hard. But I'm with you. I think we got to just keep having the conversation, and I won't stop. You know. But it's going on deaf ears because of all the crap that goes on in the big news. They hear all of the downfalls to whatever's happening to one of the coins or whatever, whether it's FTX, it's whatever, Terra Luna or any of these. It's just left a really bad taste in their mouths. Like I have a lot of wealth managers that are friends of mine who are all traditional investors with their clients. If I have a conversation with them about blockchain, they don't want to hear one word about it at all. No one's interested, and that's just how it is, unfortunately. And so I'm like, just educate yourselves, diversify, just learn this technology. But they're like, nah, we're good. So just to let you know, like I've been here I'm 52. I've lived in Los Angeles for 38 plus years, and I'm very well connected. Unfortunately, no one's fighting.
I don't even like to use the term blockchain with anybody, especially those who may not be involved in it. I like to use distributed ledger technology because everybody knows what a ledger is, right? If you're just something you write down on and you're like, distributed ledger, what do you mean this distributed ledger? And sometimes it gets people asking questions a little bit. Maybe switch it up, maybe see if that term, if they ask, maybe one of your friends will be like, wait, what's a distributed ledger technology? And then you can just talk about the blockchain without ever using the word blockchain, get them interested in it, and then just say, and the way that the validation of the transaction that's encryptically sent on the network is with the token, and we call that a blockchain. And then they'll say, oh wait, what, you were talking about a blockchain the whole time? Sorry. It's just I love those kind of like irony of moments that occur.
I
But Chris,
agree
Yeah,
with
the verbiage does matter very much. And I like that you pointed that out. I typically use the words decentralized, or we'll talk about like self-sovereignty and the self-sovereign identity. So there are a lot of ways to kind of bring people around to the idea. And lastly, and then I'll shut up, I just want to offer you that they will be forced to accept it very soon with the launching of CDBCs. They're not going to have a choice. Your TradFi guys are going to be blowing you up trying to understand what you know, because what they don't know right now is that our government is adopting this type of digital currency system. We're going to need to participate in the global economy because other countries already have. But that's a different conversation, but some solace, hopefully.
quickly before, sorry, I just want to make it a little short. I added those two links, the educational links on top, if anybody is interested to learn more. And Sugar, I send it to you to direct to your DM. But if you want to get like more information, educational information, I'll put it on top if anybody's interested.
Ledger, the company, I'm not particularly a fan myself, but 808 man, you have had your hand up. Sasha, you got your hand up, and then Dazzling.
So I was gonna add on top of that learning part, especially for young kids, there's even for coding at the most basic level, they have something called Scratch Junior, which is very simple for kids to actually get into and get to start to liking to code because if you learned how I learned or some of the older generations learned, it was yeah, pretty tedious unless you came from the MySpace era, which MySpace was bomb as fuck. I love MySpace. That shit was dope. I wish we could bring that back. But like Scratch Junior is a bomb program for young adults and younger kids to have from well, my daughter learned Scratch Junior when she was in the third grade, but they have from that age and on, and it can get more complex as they grow older into learning more about it and get more experience, which you can design your own logic around it. It's like a Legos version building blocks, but for coding. Very simple and easy once you start to get to used to and learning it, which was created in Harvard University. uh I think it was Harvard. Yes, it was Harvard. Scratch Junior. But that's another good one. And I like how you guys are talking about schools and learning of this technology because like how Sugar was saying and Sierra was saying there's not many schools teaching this except for private schools, which my daughter goes to a private school. That's how she learns Scratch Junior. Um and to also like there is that law that they're passing for kids about blockchain technology, which is if you guys don't have not looked into it yet, it's called Children's Internet Protection Act, CIPA, under the Fairfax County Public Schools in Virginia has that implemented. Texas has also their own to other places that we're gonna see popping up. I know Shellfish is was one of them that shared about that AI regulation bill protective thing that was back in October, which is pretty interesting. And because I like to hear more about people actually going out and talking about it, because like you guys, it's not easy talking about a lot of this stuff with anybody that's not in within this realm or knowledge of it, not just blockchain and cryptography, but also with AI. Just having the understanding of these kind of tech, like we and the use of it and how to use it at the most basic level as to where you teach the kids how to understand this technology, in a way to properly work around it and understand the risks involved to where they can protect themselves, and by them learning that, they're only going to be able to create better applications in the future for everybody. And it always starts like that, us teaching the younger generation what we learned and grew up off from to better themselves for their future. In return, and as we get older, watching these young ones grow up and create things, they'll be making our lives better before we pass on. You know what I mean? So it's that cycle that needs to be always there with innovation and not being fear mongered into not wanting to learn some of these new technologies or even just learning Like I remember going to school, we were learning how to shoot guns and be very adamant about safety, protection, and how to use it, and just having that knowledge. To even, even when the computer was first coming out when I was going in school, it wasn't very sought after in a way. It wasn't very well known to where the internet boom and people wanted to learn about more about technology. It was more so the younger generation that was really, really in tune with it. And you watch that explode from even learning. Somebody mentioned Minecraft and coding for kids. Having these kids use these sorts of gaming theories that helps them learn about this technology is monstrous, and a lot of the older generation don't understand that as well. I even go to Fortnite because Fortnite is one of the biggest gaming platforms with the biggest updated features to actually learn how to use Blender 3D imagery from real world applications, like real world images. You can go to an historic place, capture that image of that building, and put it into the game through through using use of Blender, learning how to use Blender, then from Blender connecting it to the Unreal Engine, and that's amazing to me. Before it was not that easy. It's still yet a little hard. You gotta learn how to use Blender 3D rendering, which is in its own freaking realm, which is very, you have that learning curve you have to learn with Blender and also Unreal, but it's there. There's applications and a lot of different people out there that has that knowledge and has been sharing it that makes it easier. And that's awesome that where we have these opportunities right now to even share a lot of this information and get this information out. But there's so much, and it's crazy because you hear game theory in a lot of places that you wouldn't think finance. Game theory and finance, that's wild, right? Game theory and medical industry. At one point, they were looking at gamers and people who built games as freaking dorks and nerds, but they're the ones that's building your financial structure right now, and all the technology everybody using and has been using. It's so hilarious, but then that's and learning all this starts at a young age and getting the kids to be interactive with all of this that's going on. Especially, it's going to be more impacted in their future as well. So that's good stuff. I like that.
Crypto
Thank you,
Beast,
guys.
please send me the info in the back DM me what you were talking about because I'm looking for simple, stupid. Like I want to learn myself. So I'm literally going to probably take the kids' courses myself. And I don't know any, and I want to trust the link. And you and I know each other really well. So thanks for sending me a DM so I can put myself and educate not only me, but my family and hopefully soon my friends and colleagues because everybody's sleeping on this.
We'll do, sugar. Aloha, people. I'll be sitting down and listening.
Thank you very much, 808. And Sasha, man, you have been very patient. I thank you very much for coming today. Please feel free to speak.
Thanks, Death. So I'm going to try a different approach to this because I came into the room when you guys were talking about quantum topics and time dilation specifically really captured my attention with the commentary that was being exchanged there. So from what I gather in my understanding of how all this works is that the synergy of moments from moment to moment creates a flow, a stream, so to speak, of those moments. The entanglement at the from the larger perspective or the zoomed out perspective of all those little interconnected moments, you can quantify that as some semblance of entanglement as best as we can comprehend it with our human brains and our understanding. And so then we moved on to the discussion about how all of this, all these realizations on a very micro level would impact the macro. And we began to see the entanglement, and one of the first areas of which was discussed was education of children and the impact of artificial intelligence and all this very pioneering technology and just scientific discovery that's occurring. And I stepped back and I was thinking that presently, like children have a lot of the momentum that contributes to this entanglement going for them. And if you look at historically speaking, It's our inability to accentuate that free flow that I think interferes with the continuity of it and the momentum that they build. We have stopping points for kids in a lot of ways. Even the way that public school is gone about and processed, it's from class to class to class to class, topic to topic, all these stop gaps. There's not enough interlinking between all of the topics and all of the material. And so it's quite fascinating to step back and realize that that is a major issue. And also the parenting and the involvement in our children's lives is also stopgapped by our own personal I guess flow states, you could say. When we wake up in the morning, quite often on my mind is like, how do I get my workday started in congruence with my child's school day, and how do I make all of this work? And we're still inefficient at getting all of that to work because we have a lot less time with our children than most of us would like, I'd venture to say. And lastly, in closing, how all of that interlinks into the jobs being taken away. I think we're on the dawn of being able to access a pure flow state of which momentum is not only an exchange between people and machines and technology, but people and people themselves. So parent and children will be able to experience the momentum of learning together, of experiencing life together. Children will be able to experience learning from their parents in a very real and fluid sense, instead of the compartmentalized education system that they've been subjected to for some time. And in order to get there, yeah, all the on-ramps that Shellfish and Sierra were discussing that have already been in place, they're there. We need to accelerate the understanding that there's a large infrastructure, whether it's the shared economy or whether it's remote work, whether it's learning from home or homeschooling, all these little facets of what the future looks like for the more optimal outcome are already in place. We just need to sort of realize that each day that passes is an opportunity for us to access that flow state that's occurring on a macro level. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much, Sasha, for sharing your words. And I always enjoy when you come to the space. And I definitely have thoughts of what you spoke about, and would love to respond in a couple minutes after Dazzling. You had your hand up, then Sierra and Selfish.
Yes, sweet. I just want to recognize that when Sugar jumped in the room, I got a couple of things, but yeah, when you jumped in the room and you asked for help, every single speaker jumped at the gun to raise their hand to help you. And I just want to just acknowledge that everyone here is freaking awesome. So that's yeah, pat on the back to you guys. But I had a feeling this would get skipped over. But you were saying when you jumped in that you'd like an AI that could basically just kind of run over your computer and you could just ask it what to do. Well, I hope you're using Microsoft, because they're releasing basically what's called Copilot, which is an AI to basically do exactly what you had just described. So it's not free because I've just looked it up, but it will cost you. But yeah, and if you're using a Mac like I am, hopefully Apple will release something eventually. Well, they're going to have to compete. Otherwise, I'll leave Mac and I'll go to Microsoft. But yeah, that's something that's really exciting. The other thing I was going to touch on too is about the education. You're saying that they just don't want to know about it, they don't want to have the conversation. And I do a lot of work for teachers, and I ask them about it all the time. I'm like, are you guys using it in any way, shape or form? And they said, no, we can't, we're not allowed to. And that's coming from the top level. So until something changes at the top, they can't really do anything. But now that I'm thinking about it, if you've got systems like Copilot coming to Microsoft, where you can just kind of, help it assist you with using your computer. Microsoft is in every single school system, well, at least here in Australia anyway. So, yeah, they're going to have no choice but to begin using it at some point. So I think a lot of things are going to change there in the education system, not only for teachers to utilize it, but also for children to start learning how to use it as well. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Dazzling. I so love and appreciate you. And I just really want to say that I'm always really positive about humanity and everyone always coming together to help. Anytime there's a natural disaster in like your neighborhood or something's going on, you know, people are there to really support you. And I really want to make sure that everyone, regardless of what's going on in the world, recognize the fact that your neighbors, get to know your neighbors, like be kind, like pay it forward, help them, make sure to connect with the people in your community, because this is how we are going to win. At the end of the day, every single day since I was a little kid, and I remember even from the Iran and America, all the shit that happened with my revolution and me having to leave Iran like in 24 hours, locked bank accounts, like had to leave with nothing in our pocket, like just get the fuck out, you know? I will never forget how much it was the people, your community, your family, and people who were your friends helped you get, you know, from point A to point B. And so, as much as there is a lot of FUD and fear out there with like war happening between China and America and this, that, and the other, the most important thing is, you know, these audio rooms, like I know that a lot of us come into these spaces and we connect with one another, but do the same thing in real life, okay? Because that's really important. When there's a natural disaster or whatever is going on, or whoever's creating a disaster or whatever the fuck is happening, you know your neighbors on your block. Together, everyone can overcome stuff, but by yourself, you can't. It's really hard. So I commend you, and I commend everyone for chiming in and trying to help me like best understand. You know, I'm in these rooms right now because I'm not necessarily working full time. I am right now building a house from ground up. So I'm literally listening. I'm always in your rooms trying to learn, but I am trying to get my business back on track because this is what I want to initially do, is to help educate, which will happen starting January once I'm done with this project. And I just want to thank you. If I don't often thank you because I'm always listening, I really, from the bottom of my heart, every person that interacts and is educating every other person who's coming in these spaces, I'm very grateful, and all of us are, and I'm speaking on behalf of every person because I know that we really are feeling this way. So thank you so much, everybody, for contributing. And please feel free. I trust you guys. So DM me if there's a good, simple, stupid way of learning technology. I'm here for that. I can't, handle like all these big words. It's already complicated enough. And another thing someone else said in another room that I do want to say, like, I don't have to know how my phone works. It fucking works. Okay. I don't need to know all the ins and out of how this fucking iPhone works. When it's not working, I'll be very upset. So will everybody else. But that's not my area. But I just want to understand enough to be able to teach my kid and my friends, like, okay, here's another avenue of what you can do with money, because this is what's happening with digital currency, because they don't know.
Here, 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 here.
Well, I always appreciate you coming to the spaces as well, Sugar, and especially from an education standpoint. If there's anything you're ever wondering or want to ask, I mean, feel free to either ask in the space or in a message. But Sierra, did you have your hand? Yeah, you still have your hand up. Sorry, the emoji was in the way. Please feel free to speak, and then Shellfish.
I had actually pulled it down because I know you're dying to pivot, but then I shot it back up again because I had a fleeting final thought that will hopefully maybe help us pivot a little. Just in listening to some of the different questions that people have asked throughout, and Sugar, especially some of the questions you asked about education and how to get involved, I just want to make a public service announcement that Google's Bard, B-A-R-D, Bard, terrible name, I know, is free. It is a free large language model. It's actually multimodal. And what that means is it can do speech to text. It can also read you back speech. It has computer vision image processing, so you can upload a screenshot or a photo of whatever and say, what am I looking at, or like extract the text from this. It's got a lot of capabilities that I don't think they're marketing well or widely. And it's actually trained on a larger set of parameters than GPT-4. So ChatGPT-4 launched its GPT-4V this week. The V, I assume, standing for vision, because that is what they have added, is vision capabilities. Not everyone has access to this yet. I think it's going to be rolled out to the public in the next couple of weeks. But I just wanted to throw out there that there are free tools available for use, and just interacting with them will help you learn and understand them. And who doesn't love free? Bing also. Bing Chat is free. And if you didn't know, Bing Chat runs on top of GPT-4. So same capabilities as GPT-4, but Bing Chat. And with that, let's talk about what we're going to do in a few years when none of us have to work anymore, because all of these systems are providing our basic necessities.
You'll work until the day you die. I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Nah, I want to see you guys at the beach.
Shellfish, you got your hand up. Please go ahead if you had your concepts you'd like to speak about. Thoughts. You've had your hand up for a while.
I'll try to make it quick. First, I just totally thought like the post-monetary society reminded me of Dead Poet Society, and we should all be like saying, "Oh, Ranger, my Ranger," right? So that was a little bit kind of comedy side note. Anyway, I was actually excited about like the whole Lex Friedman and Mark Zuckerberg interview, still talking about it because of the photorealistic opportunity in the AR VR coming. And, you know, everybody resisted cell phones. I know I was like, I'm not paying all that money and like, whatever. And I distinctly remember my grandfather actually making me handwrite out thank you letters. And he's like, you are going to do this. This is always going to be around. People really appreciate that. And I think as we move forward, I think the fact that you're going to be able to just jump into VR and see your grandparent that sent you that $50 or 50 Bitcoin or XRP or whatever. I don't think the handwritten letter is going to be as appreciated as seeing my face as I receive it from them. And I just thought that was like a really cool thing I wanted to throw out there. But anyway, I digress. I know you have a lot to wrap up, and I will hand over the mic.
Mm-hmm.
I just love when you that's so funny.
Death, we didn't lose you, did we?
No,
I was just going to say, I don't hear him.
I'm here.
All right, we're ready. We're ready for you. I know you said you wanted to speak on this for a while, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Well, so I'll combine a lot of what's already been spoken about in the space and the get Sasha back up here in the concepts that's been spoken about so far, and going off of from an educational standpoint, right? Because I just wanted to touch on, before I go there, something that Sugar had spoken to about earlier, right? Education as a whole, the way that education is done today in Western civilization primarily, but throughout the entire world, I think is going to drastically change, and really, really needs to, because it doesn't propagate a proponent of understanding the underlying architecture and technology that is going to make up our entire society. It already pretty much does, and especially in new countries and places that are being built in the world, this underlying technology, this architecture, is being directly built into everything that exists, the structure and material itself, and a thought processing way as well. But post monetary society, it's this very close relation to this thought of the society that it exists in the show Star Trek, the notion that we are going to get to a point where money doesn't actually have to exist. Now it can exist, and for the Internet of Value, it exists in both fashions. As this is for me, I'm a proponent of the Internet of Value. It exists on both fashions, with money or without money, because value is truly trust, and that trust is an opinion that you place onto an object, or in this case, could be an asset. Anything that you utilize as an asset to yourself, and this thought of where we are going with the combination of these smart tooling sets, large language models, brain control interfaces, these neural networking capabilities, where we're going to be able to triangulate and communicate in a distributed manner the thoughts that we have in our brain, and the awareness that we have of as a structure and a substance, uh, combining that with things like digital identity and encryption, and the means of having ZK rollups, or zero knowledge states of proof that can be proven from one system to the next in an encrypted manner, where the security of that individual, that object, is kept, but the reliance of the information that is given is up to the utmost highest standard, and agreed upon, that we know who you are without having to know who you are based off of that. All of these different things interlaying with each other from a tooling standpoint, and rolling that into the education. I think this is why I'm doing this. This is the utmost of importance, is this segment, and the scariest segment is where we're in this specific spot, this inflection point, where our society is losing jobs at a rapid rate. Not only these smart tooling sets, but robotics itself being able to replace the physical and material jobs that exist today. I see it as a long term graciousness. There's a long term prospect of uh, the ability for our species to manifest things that are beyond our thoughts today, and just because of the time that would be gifted to everybody and to those who would be able to accomplish these tasks. But to the to this inflection point, where we're at this very scary point, that those who do not understand it, who cannot see that light at the end of the tunnel, are very scared, and the fear is very easily able to be taken over and create this notion of the wall, which means I don't want any of the information because I'm going to block it out until it breaks the wall, right? And once it breaks the wall, they have no uh, um, ability to not accept the difference of the existence. And so these would be a lot of the late bloomers to the technology. But the reason I'm here, and this thought of where I see a post-monetary society going to, is it's us as the leaders, those who are willing to dig deep and learn the architecture, learn the technology, teach it to the youth, and educate them so that they may understand the technology, and they be the ones that are the hands that mold the figment of society and itself, the incentive that drives us as interactions we have with each other. Um, from an educational standpoint, thinking about large language models, the large language model, the context of being able to have this different weighted thought of notion of understanding of what words actually mean to us, paired with a neural network. So the ability to take previous states of information, dissect it, and utilize that in a future sense of setting. If I do these three things, this is probably going to be the outcome, right? The same sense of notion of how we kind of use our brain and think about situations before they occur based on the previous data that we have, and combine that with a natural language model. So the notion of being able to symbolize all of the different intents that we have behind something. I can say chair, but to you and I, chair may be two different experiences. I may think of chair as symbolically something very significant. You think of chair as just something I sit on whenever I think I see chair and I want to sit on chair. But the notion of being able to describe that notion of intent from the underlying text that could be given, and situational wise, pair that with something like a you have it today, right, in all of our devices, but even a brain control interface, or a neuromorphic headset that where you could just wear, or a headphone, perhaps, eye contact, all of these different assimilations of the possibility where that connectedness from that type of system could interlay into the interplay of every interaction you partake with. And from an educational standpoint, give you the gift and the ability, Sugar, how you, I think it was you that brought it up before, or actually it may have been Sierra, I'm sorry. I was talking about, learning with your children, right? And this process and notion of going through the steps with them. I think it's very beautiful, because, the more you know, the less you know. And there is always a heightened awareness of understanding behind the simplistic steps and notions of all of the things that we know today. I mean, who here today could really take apart a phone and say, well, this battery contains this particular amount of lithium dioxide and aluminum and iron, and if I put these particular contaminants together, this is going to make like a new battery for myself. I mean, no, right? As far as retail goes, and civilians, I mean, almost nobody would be able to build themselves a battery if they needed to today. But
Ranger, light it, don't fight it, and then we figure out how to do the battery.
And Death Ranger, my thought is, maybe you don't need to know how to code, but learning the language to navigate the landscape definitely benefits you.
Well, it's the architecture behind the code. So I don't need to know how to code. But if I'm going to, and you brought it up earlier, I think, with this diagram of, if I'm going to simulate a world, right? If I want to be able to speak a world into existence in this virtual reality third dimensional setting, well, not only does this smart tooling set that you're communicating with need to know the context of the design and the thought behind the architecture, but it needs to understand your intent of what you are truly asking for. And I think in that, this this ability to have this like communication aspect, where that you would be able to have that in a virtual setting. And I kind of lost my placement of thought there for a second. I'm sorry, Shellfish, if that was what you had brought up.
Well, I just kind of imagine it like somebody just walking into, say the metaverse, and your ability to prompt would be like reading The Big Red Dog or Clifford the Big Red Dog, compared to somebody that had a vast amount of knowledge and was able to describe the Iliad or War and Peace. The larger your database is, the larger your understanding and conceptual, your ability to conceptualize language will get you further. Instead of living in maybe a pixel universe, you would live in more photorealistic or just whatever your heart or your brain could come up with.
I remember where my thought was going there. So this, I don't necessarily know if I would put it to, and yes, the understanding of the language is very important, because the way that you use the language and utilize those words, it leads to a very specific intent. Obviously, the way that we word our sentences are very specific to the way that our brains work, and the neurons are firing off, and the synaptics. But I would say it's like the understanding of the architecture underlying of how you want things to work. So, if I was to try and create a virtual world where, or this communication where I wanted to simulate the thought of an instance of something being able to occur in a real world setting, but virtualize it, and for myself, the understanding of, I guess, the intent, the explanation behind that, and that tooling set allowing for that virtualization to occur. It's more so, and yes, you're right, you don't need to know development. But it's like understanding the underlying architecture of the modeling of what you want to exist, and that would make it easier for this type of processing unit to pick up on the intent of what you were describing. But nonetheless,
Are you talking about like visually in your envisioning it in your mind, without typing it, it could automatically kind of lay it out for you in a sense.
Yeah, and that's if it
That's
was,
just the picture I'm getting.
Yeah, that's definitely one thought of it is even without vocalization of it, without even having to explain the vocalization of it, just the thought,
You know
the
what's
intent
wild
of the
about that,
feeling.
Death? People really need to understand EEG technology and brainwave synchronization between such LMMs and EEG tech, because it's vast and the power behind it and what's being able to do with it, it's crazy. Yet not talked about a lot as how we're talking about a lot of different things at the moment. But that's one of them. Sorry, but yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know why I literally had a brain fart on it twice. Like I completely just lost my train of thought. But it's that exact notion. It's like the the picking up on the intent behind the feelings, and those feelings being these chemical reactions inside of the body that are creating these electromagnetic frequencies, which you pick up on and determine to be feelings in the synaptics. And so this understanding of that intent, and then you bring me to that thought of if it's not a neuromorphic headset, an earpiece, something you can wear on the eye, but even something like a BCI, which is a brain control interface, which is something maybe a little bit more invasive, that's able to pick up and not only pick up on the synaptics but actually transmit electromagnetic frequencies back to the synaptics. And so that goes to the next notion of, if I want to communicate with this large language model and I say I need to know how to fly a helicopter, it can imprint that thought of knowledge of notion into the synaptics of the brain. Now, I don't think that makes up for some of the things like we would consider haptics, right? The kind of muscle memory of flying a helicopter, but the underlying, I know which buttons to click to turn the helicopter
Do you
on and to
remember
make
that movie
that
where I
else.
forgot his name, but they actually imprinted martial arts techniques and fighting to a bunch of different stuff, which is my crazy because that's what we're talking about now. Sorry, everybody else that had their hands up. I'm driving
Oh,
too.
sorry, Super Soldier.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I think that's the name of it.
Yeah, it was a great movie. It had one of my favorite actors in it. I can't remember his name now. Gosh, gotta love it.
Kurt Russell in Soldier, or maybe Universal Soldier.
That was also a great one. Yep. The one I was thinking of though had Ron Van Dam. Is that was his name? Yeah, is this martial
Yeah,
artist? Yeah,
Jean
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
John Van Dam.
That's
Sorry.
Universal Soldier. Yep.
Yeah. It was
Yeah,
Universal.
Universal Soldier.
I love it, Sasha. Great. You had your hand up though, Sasha, if you want to speak, and then Sierra.
Yeah, I'm going to bounce here in a second. I've enjoyed the conversation thoroughly. I just wanted to add to your last tidbit, Death, that the underpinnings of that sort of technology, from my perspective, are really just understanding predictive patterning. And I think we were talking about it earlier in the space, the idea of like losslessness in data, and how AI is, and all these LLMs, their ultimate goal is to use a lesser amount of tokens than they're using to reach a more finite, streamlined perspective or response output, so that everything is achieved more efficiently. And those are like the guidelines and the underpinnings of how we should technically approach the same aspect as far as our own neurological training is concerned. We should aim for more of a signal than noise in the signal and noise ratio. And if we do that, we enter like a different understanding of the world around us that might be more simpatico with momentum and progress and building. So I like all the future tech perspectives, but I also like working with our own technology in very non-invasive manners, and training our brains to just be more efficient and be more precise and more lossless, because that seems to have contributed to a lot of the holes that we've dug ourselves into as a society.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. A heightened sense of awareness, I think, really propagates with a lot of these tools for sure. especially when the tool set itself has the means of being able to respond without the actual notion of an initial message being sent to it. I think it'll change the dynamic behind it completely as well. But Sierra, please go ahead.
I just wanted to. I shot my hand up when you were talking about BCIs and kind of the very real potential that we'll be able to just like stream conscious thoughts into iterations through computer interfaces. But before that, and something that I don't think we, as this group anyway, have ever really talked about together, and something that I think is, well, it's not in the very near future, it's here. VR and AR were kind of overlooked for a long time as being a, not a luxury product, but a like a gaming tool, like something that you would use as a, the word is escaping me right now, but not like a productive tool. However, with some of the advances happening just on the AR front, we could have a population of people who are able to see information in real time inside of their glasses. Additionally, with VR stuff, something that I've been acutely aware of lately, and I think that everyone should just kind of like have a pulse on it because it's interesting. VR is starting to incorporate synthetic olfactory stimulation. So what I mean by that is scent. They are going to use synthetic scent to immersify you in whatever experience you're visualizing. And it's not the same as a BCI. However, these are things that allow us to grip our reality and to alter them, to alter our perception of our reality, I think has really serious potential implications. Right now, they're doing it with like fun scents. Like if you walk up to a, I don't know, like bubble tea bar in the metaverse, you can smell Earl Grey, and that's great. But what about, I don't know, when it is scents that trigger memories? I don't know if everyone knows this, but our olfactory senses are our strongest memory anchors. So scent actually anchors your brain to memories. This is proven. And anyone who has PTSD could probably speak to how scent has triggered them into PTSD-like episodes just as much as loud sounds, if not more. So I just, when we were talking about like kind of manipulating our brain, I want people to at least be aware of, I guess, the word sensory hijacking. It's a thing, and it's interesting, and we'll save that topic for another time. That's all.
I don't know, Sierra, if it was maybe it was your microphone. It was like every couple words it got like muffled a little bit. I understood everything you said. I'm pretty sure everybody did. It was just
Yeah, I heard her too. I
a
love
little
this. I
difficult.
love this subject because it's something I've been delving in for quite a long time, as I've been sharing a lot about it for a long time, especially with a lot of military use in the earlier days before it actually came out for production use for the retail and just everyday people. You know, projected AR. Then you got Ciara talking about tastes and smells and triggering your senses in your brains, which in the VR world is being has been getting worked on for quite some time. Even the use of projected AR in VR, which is wild that you be able to trigger those latent memories that you have of certain things that you went through in your experiences, such as when you first tasted an apple or you first tasted honey or you smelled the sensation of you smelling garlic that triggers a lot of stuff and memories, and it is one of your strongest ones that you got within your brain. And it's technology that has been getting worked on for a long time, which is crazy because before even haptics became haptics, it was those theories and stuff was getting worked on. and it's crazy to see more about it. And I agree with Ciara that people should delve into it and kind of understand it more. And it's gonna see. I always like to refer to an anime called Sword Art Online because it literally depicts all what we're talking about with what we're saying. Being able to have that feeling of sensation, those different sensations you have in your virtual world, taking your mind into a metaverse like area where you can have certain things and also feel them while you're in the virtual setting. Um, I know a lot of people like to refer to Ready Player One, but it's not like Ready Player One. You're like really something more in depth than what Ready Player One offers. But it's crazy, and a lot of this anime is actually created by people that has been studied and working on a lot of these projects early on, which is crazy.
Yeah, and I will give two examples or scenarios, Sierra, where both you can make the judgment between how it could be used and right, like the lights that, because you make a very good point, or I should say good. I'm sorry, I've tried to stay away from that word. You make a very excellent point though, where it could inhibit the wanting to exist in this, per se, this reality, because you're kind of like this addict where you want to exist in that reality, which is a virtual setting existing on some sort of database that we have. Could be very detrimental. uh, on the other side, plus side, think about space travel. Before we have the means of warp drives or the ability to have teleportation from one point in time to the next, the means of sending somebody to Mars for 6 months, possibly inundated or in a state where their body is in a sleep mode, but the brain is awake, and you could put them in this virtual setting where their family could visit them. They have the sense of smell, the haptics, the feeling of their family that they're seeing and their kids, and it's like they're not ever actually from home, right? It's like they're working every day and they just get this, they get to see their kids at the end of the day. And you could even relay it to like an AR setting where you're in a virtual environment and then you get augmented into your house, and say it's even a holographic sensor that inputs you into the house, and so you're eating dinner with your family sitting there and you can't tell a difference. I think that could be where the that like kind of concept could really take hold and make sense, and provide an efficiency in a setting where otherwise it could be something very detrimental, being stuck in a little capsule for 6 months getting shipped over to Mars, which I can't imagine is going to be very fun for the first groups of people who land. 808 though, go ahead, man. Oh, sorry, Sierra.
I was just going to say thank you for adding that like optimistic, positive potential to the conversation, because I'll keep this super quick. But there's an episode of Black Mirror where they use really advanced VR to augment the reality of how soldiers see their opponents, and they make them look like monsters. They essentially fabricate this entire like end of the world scenario where there's some sort of, they're either infected with something, I'm not sure, but the way that they visually appear to the soldiers is different. They also inhibit like their ability to smell things on the battlefield, all of which just are not good things. So thank you. That's all. Thanks for adding a different future.
So, it's never the tool, it's just how it's used, and so everything can be used in either an optimistic or a very detrimental and nefarious way. 808 though, man, you got your hand up, and then Dazzling and Shellfish, and we will probably close up right around after that.
I think it was Dazzling. If Dazzling wants to go.
Oh, thank you. You're kind.
Yeah, I was going to say, I love the idea of augmented reality glasses. I mean, if I think about it, just bring us to the kind of immediate future. Using it within the construction industry. I mean, if you've got, say, a Sparky, right, running around and they've got these glasses on, they can see or identify any problems within the electrical system throughout their household, right? But that can be thrown into any sort of industry. And I know 808, you were in the space where we were talking about this not long ago. And if someone collapsed on the ground where you're wearing glasses, you could see kind of it would be able to detect if they had broken a bone, or if something was, if they were having a heart attack or something like that. You could detect these things quite quickly. But I'm very excited for to getting my hands on some of these glasses for sure. But Sierra, I was just thinking about that guy that was in that space last night or yesterday for me, and he was. You guys were trying to convince him that the Earth wasn't flat. It was a funny conversation, but there was one bloke that had mentioned about maybe it was you, I can't remember. Someone had said, if you threw you into your own rocket that was funded by you, so there was no intervention by anyone else or anything like that, and you went out there and you had a look at the Earth from afar, would you still consider the Earth to be flat if you could see it, right? But it kind of makes me think that with these BCIs and all these glasses that are coming out, and just kind of your perception of dealing with these types of things. I mean, who's to say that you couldn't one day, let's say SpaceX have an experience where you can go out into outer space, a space hotel or something like that, and you jump in the seat and you get ready and stuff, but then all of a sudden, like, you wouldn't even realize it, but the whole experience could actually just be within your own head, right? And you could never actually have ended up going out there at all. But then you would come back from that experience having believed that you'd experienced that for real, which I think is a fascinating thing to think about. But yeah, I'll leave it there.
I totally forgot what I was gonna say, but you said something very interesting early on about now I forget now. But I'm gonna just talk about the story because it's very interesting when you are in that, your mind is in that world, in the VR world, in such a setting, because that anime literally has this first episode. You know how in the virtual world you can create your own avatar and make you look like something you're not. In the very first episode, when everybody got locked into that world, they all reverted back to their original self. So it's crazy. You know what I mean? So you got interesting scenarios such as that happens within these VR worlds that can really happen in real life, in the real virtual world, as when you create your avatar. That's not something so far fetched now, because your information of how you look is out there. You know what I mean? So having such situation as that, and it's just really mind blowing to kind of see a lot of this technology, just how fast it evolved within the past 10 years or so. And I've been within this technology, especially VR and AR, for a very, very long time, longer than cryptography actually. But yeah.
Thank you, 808. Shellfish, you got your hand up. You want to finish? Want to take it out?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking, because I'm leaving my house right now and the news is on, and just being able to show people that may think that whatever news story is a conspiracy theory or a fabrication, being able to reach out to somebody in that area and have the VR tour of, like, say, a war-torn area, or an area that's starving that could use money that our government is, like, trying to get funding for, and people are like, wow, where's this money going to, right? And people that are actually curious if it's legit going to the area, and seeing where your money is being spent, and being on the ledger, like, verified. I think that's
pretty cool thing to think about. Or I don't know, because everybody's always like, oh, the government is so unaccountable for the finances, and who spends $35 on a hot dog, and blah, blah, blah. So if we had this type of thing where you could see that, well, it's not just about the hot dog, it was about getting it there, the shipping, the et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. We have a really cool future ahead of us, and thanks for another great space, Death Ranger.
No, it wouldn't be a great space without everybody who joins. And it was an excellent conversation today, even though I am definitely a little tired and not fully there in the brainwave capacities that I could be. But nonetheless, it was really a fun and enjoyable space. Is there anything that anybody in the audience, any thoughts that anybody has that they'd like to bring up at the end to get to close on? Sierra, Dazzling, Shellfish, any thoughts on the space today, and maybe what you guys would like to see next space 808 also?
Sorry, I had to cut off because I was meeting my wife. But what I was trying to get at with that controlling of what happened in that real world and that virtual world is that they were studying the brainwave activity of when that was happening, the switch from themselves being revealed and the action of them dying in the virtual world and dying in real life. The cause of it is crazy. So really open your minds into just checking that anime out a little bit and just having an open mind to trying to see and what they were trying to explain about the technology, which we are talking about now. It's wild.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I agree. It's significant the amount of time that has went into the studying of the architecture of the way that the brain processes electromagnetic frequencies and the way that the synaptics in the brain is all one spider web of different neurological fires of electricity being blown off and communicating with itself in this closed off walled setting, which is interesting if you think about it like that. But this is awesome space. I really loved it, and I really thank everybody for coming to the space today. We'll be back Thursday, 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. I do not have a particular train of topics to start off with on Thursday. Maybe we'll keep it closer to this kind of thought of going towards a dramatically change to society and what do we see of the differences and incentives and subject matter that we all kind of interact and pertain to, or not. Maybe we'll see. Either way, I hope everybody has a great rest of the night. I love you guys, and I will see everyone on hopefully 3:30 Eastern Standard Time Thursday.
Thank you so
Aloha.
much, Deb.
Thank you, guys.
Not everybody.